Wow. Brett, that's a hard act to follow. God bless. God has definitely provided you with a blessing. And us. My name's Gary Owens. This is my testimony. When I was quite young, I was about 22, I received a traumatic brain injury. And it was December 8th, 1982. I was working in the oil fields. Part of the rig collapsed and fell and scathed the back of my head. It crushed the bone on my skull and left a hole about the size of a ball. And the ambulance brought me to the hospital, and the doctors checked me out. This was after they were giving me CPR and everything at the location, trying to make sure that I survived for the ambulance ride. And once they got me to the hospital, the doctors informed my wife that I was severely injured and that with surgery I stood a 50-50 chance of survival. And if I did survive, I'd be a vegetable the rest of my life. So I tell people I'm a carrot. They may be able to tell me I'm a vegetable, but I get to pick which one. It was during that stay in the hospital that I came to realize that I needed a lot of help, and I was really in trouble, and nothing tells you that like being in the hospital. And needless to say, I survived the hospital and the stay and the injury. I wear my hair really pretty long on top now because I've got a pretty big scar. It goes from one ear to the other ear. They just cut me from one ear to the other ear like a baseball and just opened me up. And so I've still got that scar. And after the surgery and they had fixed the main blood artery that comes up to the brain that provides the blood for the main part of the brain, had been blocked by bone and actually had, by blessing, prevented me from bleeding to death. At the same time, it took 10 units of blood for them to get me through surgery to get me back where I could try to mend. So I've spent all this time at the hospital just contemplating how small a being I am and how big a God we serve. And I came to realize that I had a lot of things to work on. I was a borderline alcoholic. I was verbally abusive. And Bambi helped me through the process. Sorry. So when they put me back together with staples, they stapled my skin back together. And when I got to the top, the skin didn't match up, so they twisted it like a belly button and you put a staple on the very top of it. So I had this belly button thing sticking out of the top of my head. They hadn't bothered to put anything in there, so it was soft on the backside of my skull. And Bambi had a hard time looking at my head at night. She'd roll over and look at my head. You see my heart beating. So it was sort of rough. They finally took me back to the hospital. Well, actually, when they sent me home, it was Christmas Eve, December 24th, and they said, "We're going to let you go home, but you have to check back into the hospital on Monday." And I didn't go back. And through that process, I saw the light. I felt Jesus. And I knew I had some things that I needed to do. And I've tried to work diligently on those. The more I learn about Jesus, the more I realize just how much I don't know. And I'm truly thankful for all that he has given. And I think of it as a personal connection with Jesus. And I feel like that I take that on personally. He died for me and all of us to wave away our sin and help us to be stronger. I've also learned that my family has been extremely important. And not only my direct family, but my church family. I spent 2 years doing rehabilitation. Some good and some bad. I had to learn to walk again. And it was a tough time. I tried to go back to school after I finished my rehab, and I learned that I could no longer read properly. I could read, and I always read, but when I would read, I could read a couple of chapters and remember it. But after I'd read a full page or two, if I was to go back, I didn't remember the stuff that was on the other page. So I had no I had no short-term memory. So I had to do more therapy and basically learn to study again. I learned to use highlighters and pencils and underlining and highlighting and putting Post-it notes on pages. And I was going to bring a book with me to show you, but my books looked like they were bleeding and had flags all over them. So, but it was how I learned how to get back to that process, and I'm thankful that over time I was able to succeed. I gave up on school after a while so I could work on me again, and I eventually figured out that the ways to read, to study for me were going to be a little more difficult, but I've done well with them. I spent all these years, I still have a limp, never seemed to have overcome it, and now after all these years, I'm learning that as I'm aging, some of those things are coming back again and causing me problems. I'm having difficulty with remembering large amounts of material, and I limp a little bit more than I used to, but I'm thankful because God has given me an opportunity to do an awful lot. And it's through Jesus' grace that I've been able to make the accomplishments I've made, and to him goes the credit. And for the mistakes I've made, I'm still working on those. And I seem to make too many. So I've had an interesting life, but a very productive life. And I'm very thankful for the opportunities that it gave me. I worked very diligently with people with disabilities for many, many years, and finally came to realize that God had blessed me with the ability to help others, and I was happy to do that for about 15 years, and then it became necessary for me to retire from that. So I'm still trying to be beneficial. I'm happy to be a deacon in the church, and I'm trying to do other things. So I hope that you'll keep me in your prayers, but also remember that all of the blessings we receive are from God, and I am truly thankful for all of my experiences. Thank you very much. God bless.